Welcome everyone to today's TechSoup for Libraries webinar, Public Tech Instruction, Internet Safety. I'm Crystal Schimpf and I'll be facilitating the webinar today, and I'm glad that you've joined us. If you're new to ReadyTalk today, if this is a new tool, let's just go over some of the basic features so you know how it will work. We're doing a chat-only webinar today, so you can actually just type your questions or comments right into the chat, and we will receive those and get back to you as fast as we can. So whether you have a question, a comment, or some type of technical issue, we have someone on the line to help. The audio, you should be hearing it through your computer speakers, but if you don't have a very good connection or you'd prefer to call in, there is a phone number that you can call as well, and we'll put that into the chat. If you do get disconnected from the call or from the webinar, you can actually just rejoin using the link that was emailed to you. And if you lose your phone connection, you can redial that same phone number. Also, we'll be recording today's webinar. So if you do get disconnected or are required to leave or pulled away from your computer at some point, you'll receive an email by the end of this week with an archive to the presentation, all of the materials, and links to additional resources. If you are on Twitter, please use the hashtag TechSoup today. We are live tweeting, and so you'll see us online as well. If TechSoup is a new organization for you, if you're not familiar with us, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we work to connect fellow nonprofits, libraries, foundations, etc., with tech products and services, as well as learning resources so that you can make more informed decisions about your technology. Now, since 1987, we've given product donations to over 210,000 charitable organizations. And we've also distributed 11 million software and hardware donations. So that's quite a bit through 60+ countries around the world. We've reached more than 400,000 nonprofit, library, and philanthropy subscribers with our newsletters. It's a little bit about what we do. And as far as what we offer, we have consulting services, product donations, and much more. And you can learn all about it at the TechSoup.org website. This is just an example. If you have not been to the website, this is what it looks like. And you can go to Get Products and Services to learn more about those product donations available to nonprofits and libraries. So with that, now I think we're ready to get into the topic at hand today. Welcome again to Public Tech Instruction, Internet Safety. This is a TechSoup for Libraries webinar, but it may also be relevant to nonprofits, those of you who are providing public computing services in your community. This is part of a new series devoted to helping organizations with public technology training programs. Joining us today will be Austin Stroud of the Monroe County Public Library, and we'll introduce him in just a minute. Now my name again is Crystal Schimpf, and I am the facilitator of the webinar today. When I'm not facilitating webinars with TechSoup, you can also find me at an organization called Community Technology Network, or doing other things related to digital literacy and technology training in the public. Again, Austin Stroud is joining us today. He's the instructional designer and a librarian at the Monroe County Public Library. Austin, why don't you say hello?
Hi, I'm glad to be here today. Just a quick little bit of background about my library. We have a main library. We have a small branch library as well as a bookmobile, and I do work with a lot of nonprofits in my library as well, so I think I'll have a lot of useful information to share today.
Great, and we're certainly looking forward to hearing it. Also on chat today is Ginny Meese. She's with TechSoup and does content for TechSoup for Libraries and TechSoup Global. So she'll be on the chat. She'll also be the person behind that Twitter voice online. If you are on Twitter, again, that hashtag is TechSoup. Now our agenda today, we've already taken care of the first item on here, introducing you to TechSoup and the resources that are available. But regarding Internet safety, we're going to talk about the instructional resources that may be available to help you with tech training programs in your library or nonprofit. We're also going to talk about creating curriculum, how to create it and adapt it from resources that are already available. And we'll also talk about some of the challenges that you may face in offering Internet safety instruction in your library or nonprofit. We'll have a section for questions and answers at the end, and may take some questions and answers throughout the webinar. So please go ahead and put any questions you have into the chat. We'll keep track of them and definitely get to those towards the end of the session. Now we'd like to know a little bit about you. So can you tell us, what aspect of teaching Internet safety poses the biggest challenge for you in your organization? You see several options here, and so you can click those options. Select one. Select that which is the biggest challenge for you, and we'll kind of get a sense of what your biggest challenges are. Of course, there are many challenges that we face with relation to teaching Internet safety, and especially teaching it to the public, right? That's our main focus today, is teaching it to the public, those clients that we serve. And I can see the responses are coming in. We'll show you those results in just a minute and close the poll. I'll give you a few more seconds just to put in those responses. Of course, you may see that the biggest challenge for you is not represented in this list, and feel free to type your response into the chat if there's something else more specific that is a challenge for you. All right, so I can see you've all are putting in your results. It looks like we're getting close to almost everybody participating, so I'm going to close the poll in just a few seconds in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We'll close the poll. And then we can see the results. I know you could see them as they were coming in, but it looks like just knowing what to teach with regards to Internet safety is definitely the biggest challenge that you all see. Also presenting accurate information. I think those two go hand in hand actually. And then also the challenge of having lack of interest from the public. And I suppose you're all in the right place, because none of you have said that this is not a challenge for you at all. So we are definitely addressing a topic today that hopefully you'll be able to learn a few new things to take back to your organization that will help you improve those tech training services. So let's get started with just a general overview of teaching Internet safety. Just to give you an idea of, make sure we're all on the same page as we're starting with this. Make sure we're all talking about the same thing here. And again, we're talking about teaching Internet safety to the public, and incorporating it with other public technology or public information services we may be offering. And here are just a few reasons that we can think of why teaching Internet safety is important, why that should be a priority for us. Again, you may see other things, or you may have other reasons as well, and you're welcome to put those into the chat. But just to take a look at some of these now, Internet safety really is an integral part of using technology at all. And so if we're in a position to provide technology access and instruction in how to use technology, then we need to be aware of Internet safety. Our clients and our patrons need to be aware of Internet safety. It's a basic part of digital information literacy and being able to access information safely. Also, it really is just a valuable community service that may fit into your mission or the services that you provide. So these are just some of the reasons why we're talking about this topic today, and why we might want to consider prioritizing this topic more in our organizations. I'm actually, Austin, would you tell us a little bit about the Monroe County Public Library and why teaching Internet safety is a priority for you there, and any other general information that you want to share with us now?
Well, this is a priority at our library because we have had a lot of patrons come into the library and ask questions at the reference desk, request individualized training. And so eventually I just decided that we needed to do a program on it and really answer a lot of the common questions that we're getting. What you're seeing in this picture is a picture of our training lab, and this room also doubles for staff training, but we have this dedicated space for programs such as Internet safety. There are 10 patron computers in there, as well as an instructor station. The monitor is the projector screen, so that's a little different for some people. We also, at our branch, we have 8 laptops, so when I do it out there, it's a slightly smaller, but I definitely recommend keeping it small, and this is probably the most I would have in a space, and I'll talk more about specifics a little later on.
Great. Well, that gives us an idea where you're coming from as someone in a library that's actually providing this type of instruction. And you kind of alluded to the fact there are different ways that you can actually provide this type of instruction. And here are 4 kind of larger categories on the screen. Now I couldn't type the list of everything that you might come across, but group classes. These might be classes focused on specifically on Internet safety topics, or you might incorporate it into other group classes. Individual instruction, that might be tutoring by appointment, or it might be as needed as people come in with questions. Now as far as the recorded and print-based instruction methods, this is everything from printed handouts, tutorials, screencasts, recorded videos, any means that can be delivered as it's needed to the library patron or the client of your organization. And then you might also draw on special guests, experts in your community, whether they work for a tech company or just happen to have a lot of personal knowledge. They might be able to be engaged in providing instruction in your library as well. And so it's time for another poll. And this one you can actually respond to as many answers as fit. And what we'd like to know is what instructional methods are you currently using to teach Internet safety in your library or organization. And you may not be teaching it at all right now, which is okay as well, because that's what we're here to do, is learn how to begin offering this service or learn how to do it better. And I imagine some of these are a little bit easier for us to manage than others. And we can see the responses are coming in. I'll give you a few minutes to respond to this. And if you're not sure, again, if there's something that you're offering that you don't see represented in this list, please add that into the chat. And I can still see more responses in. I know there are a lot of options here to sift through, so I'll give you time to think about that. And of course, part of the key here is really getting creative with the way, and we'll talk later about how you might creatively offer these services in a way that suits your community and your library organization, the structure that you have or the structure of your nonprofit. So I think we're pretty much done, so I'm going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And we can see the overall responses here. And of course, answering questions as needed, that is by far the most popular way to deliver Internet safety, and also sometimes the easiest, right, in the sense that we don't have to create a time in our schedule to do it. But then of course that can be very overwhelming. Some people doing group classes, individual tutoring, and then about 30% that say you're not teaching Internet safety right now. So hopefully by the end of this webinar you come to understand that there's a way that you could do this on a small scale that works, and you can kind of ease your way into teaching Internet safety and begin to offer it. You don't have to go all out from the beginning and offer group classes if that's not something that's feasible at your organization. Maybe there's a way to get started or take advantage of other creative options. Now I see that in the question somebody had asked about viruses and protecting personal computers and that sort of thing. And that's one of the topics that we think are really important with regards to Internet safety. Now there are many different topics related to Internet safety, and there are, we've listed some of them here. And any of these, and maybe other ideas that you have if you'll put them in the chat, are things that can be addressed under the umbrella of Internet safety. We'll address some of these specifically today, and we'll also give you some resources where you can go and get information about these topics that you can trust, that you know is up to date, and is presented in a way that's helpful to people and isn't stuck in the IT speak. Yeah, I see somebody in the chat mentioned that shopping safely online, so safe use of e-commerce is definitely something to do with Internet safety and kind of a fun topic to teach as well. So our goal today really is to show that there are ways to make Internet safety instruction easy. You can use existing resources. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can focus on a specific topic. You don't have to do it all at once. Start with something small. Get creative about the way you offer the instruction in a way that works with the organizational structure you have, the type of schedules that you have, and the staffing that you have. And really do what works for your organization. Don't try to overextend yourself, and really just find what is going to work for you. So that's it for our overview. And now I want to move into actually sharing with you some of the Internet safety resources. I can see that some of you have already put questions in the chat, so I'll just mention right now that we will be getting to those questions later on in the webinar, so add them in as you have them. And right now we're going to look at some of those specific resources that may help you. Their instructional tools, their information, and they are freely available online. Austin is going to get us started with the GCF Learn Free.
Yes, the GCF Learn Free, a lot of you may already be familiar with this, but it also may be new to you. This is really helpful in regards to saving you time because there are many ready-made materials available on this website, and you can find handouts, you can find videos to incorporate into your class, and you can also find other topics. So they cover more than just Internet safety. There's also an Internet safety class for kids, as you can see linked on this page that we've got open. And I really rely heavily on this GCF Learn Free in my curriculum and my materials because a lot of us are short on time, and this one's free. You don't have to worry about copyright. You just acknowledge that where you got the information from, and it's really great. They've spent so much time on this, and I recommend following them on Facebook and Twitter if you're on there, because they often will ask for feedback on additional things you would like them to add, or they'll let you know about new topics that they have to offer. And I'm gonna go ahead and advance the slide here. Common Sense Media. This one is more or less helpful for parents. I saw somebody in the chat had mentioned that they would like information for parents or for children, and this website has a lot for families. GCF had the Internet Safety for Kids for parents as well, but this one has a lot of extensive videos. There's also articles, and most of them are on protecting the children online. And I do see in the chat that someone asked if it was okay to modify the content. I adapt it. I will integrate it into my my curriculum. So I will just use small chunks of it, and then I kind of sort of like paraphrasing. You're just using bits and pieces of it, and that's sort of what I try to do with all of these resources. But Common Sense Media, this one in particular, really great for the videos. They're all short, just like GCF videos are. They're all generally under 5 minutes and perfect to break up the monotony in any training. Because anytime you can prevent you just standing there and talking, that's definitely a good thing to do with any of this. There are some articles on here as well, and blog postings and reviews. So a lot of good stuff on here, even beyond Internet safety.
Great. And then another resource that we wanted to share is onguardonline.gov, which this is a project of the Department of Homeland Security, and came through an initiative for like a national cybersecurity initiative. Now this site is another one. It's very consumer friendly. It has you can see some of the topics at the top of the screen: avoiding scams, protecting kids online, some of the things you've already been asking questions about. They have great videos, and they also have very easy to read articles, and the content between the videos and the articles align very closely. So if you prefer watching a video, you'll get the same information as if you read the article on the same subject. One of the topics I really liked is there was a section on public Wi-Fi safety. I think that's something we see a lot in our libraries, is that people come in and want to know how safe is the public wireless network, or if they go to a Starbucks, how safe is that wireless network, or another coffee shop, for example. And so keeping that video in mind might be a good resource for people to learn more about their public Wi-Fi safety. They also have things about malware and virus protection software. One of the things that I think is challenging for libraries, and someone has asked this, do we recommend antivirus or anti-spyware software? And I think a good approach is rather than recommending something specific, is showing people resources where they can actually look up reviews themselves and find out what exactly they need in order to protect and secure their own computer. Another thing about this site that I like is I actually signed up to get their email updates. So now every time they write a new blog post, I'll get an email that tells me that there's something new that's been added to the site. So as somebody who provides instruction, that's great for me to be aware of it on the practitioner side. There's also resources in here for techies and educators that may be helpful in the classroom. Now I also saw a question about whether these resources are available for us to use and whether we can use them in the library setting. And I think Austin is going to talk about this a little bit more later, but many of these resources are created in order to share them out and instruct people. So if you go in and look at the sites, you'll find that they say it is okay to use it in an educational setting. Of course, you always want to check that sort of thing out for yourself and make sure that hasn't changed since the date of this webinar though. Austin's going to talk about that a little bit more later. Now the last thing I want to say with regards to these resources is we're only showing you 3 resources right now, but when you get the archive for this webinar, we have a much longer list that address things like online privacy, some more resources that address resources for parents and children, and also links to other review sites that may review virus protection software or other products that may be out there to help people with their online safety or online privacy. So that will be coming again by the end of the week. We'll have an email out to you that will have all the archive information and additional resources. So please keep those questions coming. And right now though, I'm actually going to hand it back over to Austin because he's going to talk to us about adapting and creating Internet safety curriculum and some great tips on how we can do that in our busy schedules within our libraries and nonprofits. Austin?
Okay, thank you. And I will kind of keep an eye on the chat if it fits with what I'm talking about, but I will get to your questions at the end as well. So if I don't respond to something you say that matches to what I'm saying, I will get to you at the end too. But first I want to talk about identifying needs. This is really the biggest issue, not only with Internet safety, but with anything that you're teaching at a library or a nonprofit. Sort of the biggest thing that we keep in mind is the trends, or are the trends, and the repeated requests that we get. So the main reason that my library decided to do an Internet safety program was just because we were getting asked so many questions at the reference desk specifically about this. So those customer interactions are really key in identifying what the needs are. And if you're not working on the desk, you might be an IT person that mainly is behind the scenes. And when I'm not out in the public teaching a class, I am behind the scenes. So I often don't get that feedback from customers directly. So I rely a lot on the other staff that are on the front lines to identify sort of what our needs are and what are the common things that we're experiencing. I also rely heavily on other libraries or nonprofits. I'm very active online on listservs, and I try to join as many groups as I can, and I recommend that you do too. I know that sometimes it can get overwhelming with the emails, especially on listservs, but you can filter those to not clog up your inbox, and I do get a lot of good ideas there. When there's something that I'm not sure of, I will ask other libraries that are similar to me what they have done or how they've handled a situation. And you also want to keep in mind the individual versus group aspect. So if you're getting a lot of individual questions, you might have a one-on-one setup or a something like a book a librarian or book a staff member. My library offers one-on-one sessions, and we do 1-hour sessions. So I try to adapt things to those individual needs. If it's one person versus a whole group. Now I see in the chat someone asked if I separate classes into computers and devices. I do mainly focus on computers for my classes, but I do cover mobile safety a little bit in my internet safety program. But we don't actually practice on the devices or anything in the training that I've done. Now, also in surveying or identifying needs, you can survey, and I know a lot of people don't like doing surveying because you don't get a lot of participation. That's really the struggle with these identifying needs or doing a needs assessment. The service desks are really the main place that you're going to see your patrons, or if you take the survey out into the community. So if you have any community fairs where you can, like job fairs or IT fairs, anything like that your community might have, that would be a good place to set up a booth and survey those in your community to see what types of things they're interested in knowing. And you could ask specifically about internet safety as well. Now you can also do this online, so you could get feedback from your audience on Facebook or Twitter, or you could send them to your website to answer a poll question or an online survey. That's another good way. Now, providing incentives to participate, that's a good way to get around sort of the lack of participation. The first time I did a survey here, I think I had about 100 people respond, which that's good. That's a decent number, but I would have liked to have seen it be more, and I think it would have been a lot more if there was some incentive. So offering like a drawing, like if you do the survey, you may win a iPad, and a lot of people can't do that, but if you have a community partnerships or a Friends of the Library group or anything like that, they may be able to get you some funding so you could offer some type of incentive. And it could even be something small, like a gift certificate to buy books out of your bookstore or a gift certificate for services that you offer. Now with adapting the curriculum, someone had asked about this a little earlier, about just modifying the content from like GCF Learn Free. Now I generally won't modify what they've done, but what I'll do is I will link to their resource, and then I will pick out the key points of that or paraphrase it the way that I want to present it to fit my audience. So that adapting really does save me quite a bit of time, and I do find that helpful just to link back to my sources, but at the same time only pick out the parts that are relevant to what I'm doing or my audience. And I also try to learn from others' successes. So if I see online that another library has done really well, or another nonprofit has done really well with something, I will try to replicate it. And where internet safety is concerned, you can find a lot of good blog posts out there, especially things like Common Sense Media that I showed earlier. They have a lot of great articles and blog posts on this that you can hear. And there are different security type celebrations or awareness days that I see someone asked about that in the chat. I'd probably have to look them up, but I can definitely include that in answering questions at the end. But learning from others and giving back. So I'm sort of giving back by just doing this webinar today. So I'm happy to share anything that I have or knowledge online. When I see other people asking questions about internet safety or any topic, I will readily share anything that I have, and I think that's a good way to build a support network. So when you do run into these issues with not knowing what to teach or what to focus on, really learning from everyone else and adapting their curriculum to fit your needs is a really big thing. Now the copyright, that is something to be mindful of. The resources that we are showing, or that we have shown so far, these are free for educational purposes, and as long as you are using it for that purpose, you don't have to worry about the copyright. But you can get into some copyright issues if you're using specific resources like books or websites that are paid. Like, let's say that you have something like lynda.com that you pay for. That's an area that I would have to look into myself. My library subscribes to lynda.com, but I would want to be sure that that was legal for us to share that with a group, because they may want to charge you for specific person use to share that with others. So always ask if you're not sure. Some of the lynda.com people have connected with me on LinkedIn, so I have a few people that I can talk to readily if there's something that I'm not sure if it's okay for me to do, and always give credit. So anytime I use anything, I will include a link to the exact place that I got it and the name of the resource. Now, the big thing with any of us, either in a library or a nonprofit, is being flexible. You're going to encounter so many different day-to-day situations with your audience. You may be trying to explore something that is one size fits all to appeal to many people. That's mainly the reason that I offered internet safety here at my library, was just because we were getting so many questions about it that I thought this would appeal to a lot of different people in the community. So that was ultimately why I decided to do it. Now, you can also focus on specific levels. So in one class, you might cover viruses and malware and things like that, and free resources to fix those problems. And in another, you might just focus on internet browsers and settings on them to make them more secure and things to watch for. You really do need to know your audience. So if you can break it up into smaller chunks, I would recommend that. I do an internet basics class. I haven't offered it for a few months, but I do break up some of this content into that, some of the more basic things, and I get into the more in-depth and difficult things in this internet safety program. We did talk about the needs assessment as well just a little bit ago, but that's really important. Even if you're doing a one-on-one, make sure you ask the customer or the patron what are their needs, what are they hoping to learn. It really is helpful if you do that interview and get to know specifically what they want to know. The void recommendations, I do see that someone asked about that in the chat too. This is sort of a touchy one, and Crystal will talk a little bit about that, I think, later on with liability and whatnot and the challenges with this. But my personal thing with recommendations is I don't want to just say, use this, or go here, or I had a good experience here, go there. So I do frequently have people that bring in laptops that have viruses, and they want me to give them a specific place to take it, or they want me to give them a specific piece of software to put on their computer to protect this. And I'm just very careful to not focus on one. I give them options. And what I saw, I think Nathan in the chat mentioned, he said that he gives a list, and I think that's fine. I think that's perfect to give a list. You want to give people options, but you don't want to sort of give them from personal experience, because then you open yourself up to a little bit of a liability issue. Now the variety, which we did talk about with the poll at the beginning a bit, and it looked like a lot of you were doing several different things. Variety in terms of videos, quizzes, hands-on, guest presenters. In my internet safety class, I had a children's librarian from my library talk about child safety for parents, and I think that's a really great thing if you can rely on a subject matter expert. I don't work directly with children. I do most of my programming for adults. I do occasionally have teens that attend, but I think building on that experience and focusing on what you have within your organization or library is a big thing. And giving them choices, that sort of meets the need with the recommendations. You don't want to specify or give them one thing. I often will have patrons that will want me to load a specific piece of software on their computer, and I avoid that because I don't want to be blamed if something goes wrong, and that's really a big issue that you'll see, especially in libraries. But you want to get people involved and help them with their learning, so they can take ownership of it. Don't do it for them. Now with the content, I know this is something that in the poll this showed as well, that a lot of you were wondering what to teach, and you really cannot do it all. There's so much to cover. You have to limit yourself. Here I do offer multiple programs. I've done an internet safety class. I've done internet basics where I talk a lot about viruses and malware and whatnot, but I also have done open source or free software, freeware type programs where I give recommendations without being specific. So again, I'm giving them like a list on choices of things that they may be able to use to fit their needs. And I'm also a really big fan of, if I talk about it, I want it in a handout. I at least want a link. I know that does use a lot of paper, and but I'm really a big fan of job aids and giving them something to take home. So you do want that. People really love handouts, and if they're focused on taking notes versus listening to you, they're not going to get as much out of it. So I think anything you can do in that regard will be beneficial. And I will be sharing my handouts and slides and whatnot as well at the end, so you will see that. Now, giving them options, again, I talked a little bit about this. You're giving them choices to fit their needs, not what fits your needs or what. Janet had asked if I recommend one thing over another with software, and no, I don't. I do give them choices. I try to say I've used this or I've not used this. I might say that, but I don't push them in one direction, and I think that's really important because, again, they could come back on you angry later if things don't work out or they download the wrong thing because you told them AVG, but they've downloaded the wrong AVG, or they downloaded like a virus website that wasn't the real website. So there's all kinds of issues that you could run into. Now the timing, my internet safety programs, I did 2 hours, and it was really a little too long, so I recommend 90 minutes. I think if you go over 90 minutes, you're going to lose the audience because you can only hold their attention for so long, and if you try to cram too much in, especially with beginners, their minds are just going to crumble. They're not going to remember anything that you told them. So you really do want to try to break it up into chunks. And the 1-hour one-on-one sessions, if you're short on staffing, that might not be reasonable. But I do those as well. Our reference staff does that, so it's not all just on me. But if it gets into more in-depth technical things, I will be the one that generally will talk about that or handle those one-on-ones. And this is just an example of a slide. This is a free template that I got online for internet safety, and I thought it fit really well with the theme. There is a link to my slides that you'll get when we send that out as well. A needs assessment. I do a survey at the beginning. I know some of you probably aren't comfortable with adjusting your teaching on the fly, but I do that too. So I'll survey people at the beginning. And then also getting them involved, I have them search on Google. There are some other topics here that you could do, additional topics: antivirus, internet browsers, internet bullying, harassment. Again, you could have your children's staff help with that. You can't do it all, so that's a big challenge.
Great, and we are moving into the section on challenges. Austin, you've given us a lot of information about different ways that we can approach internet safety instruction in our libraries or in our nonprofits. And before we move into the challenges, I thought it might just be good to address one or two of the questions. One question came in, do you have any suggestions for how to inform people without terrifying them or making them paranoid of all online interactions or transactions? Do you have anything to say on that topic?
Well, I think really the key is to educate them on what a good how to evaluate websites. That's really a big thing. I think that's more of an internet basics thing. But you need to lay that foundation with how to evaluate what a safe website is. I really stress that in my internet basics programs, and that helps people get over that fear, because then they understand better when a website is legitimate or not, and that's really helped a lot here. Great.
And there was a question that came in that I just want to address, that I know somebody had a comment or a question related to a list that they that they give their patrons, and I just wanted to let everyone know that was a local list. It sounded like not an online list of possible sources, and that list was of local computer repair shops. So that's the sort of thing you would want to compile locally, and then maybe have on hand to share with people if you do get questions, people needing that assistance with repairing their computers. Also, I just want to say that many people have been putting excellent links and ideas in the chat, and we're capturing all of those, and we'll try to put as many of those links in our archive that we'll send out in a follow-up email again by the end of this week. So people were asking if there are other security or online privacy awareness months, days, weeks. So we're trying to capture all of that, and we love that you're sharing your ideas with us as well. We're getting that collective brain thing happening this morning, which is, or this afternoon as it may be for you. So that's great. And I think now we'll get to some more questions at the very end, but I do want to take a look at some of these challenges that we've identified. And really, we have kind of three categories that we're looking at here. The first is, whether or not there's public interest. Will people attend the class? Is there enough interest? How do we go about promoting it in order to get people there? I know even one person had asked the question of where and Austin, I think this might have been for you, is where were the internet safety questions coming from? Where is the interest in the community coming from so we can meet that? And I'll just post here a couple of possible solutions, and then Austin, if you want to add in anything quickly. but offering individual assistance if you're not sure a group class will be well attended, using library displays in order to create interest, and hopefully not that paranoia, but getting people interested and concerned about their own safety and privacy online. And making sure, again, to identify who that target audience is and really make it relevant to them. Is it parents, or is it business professionals, or is it people who are learning computers for the first time? Austin, anything to add on this?
One other thing to add, I guess, is that I do 3 times a month. I do tech help by appointment. I used to do open labs where people could just show up, but now I do 30-minute appointments 3 times a month. I do it the same time of the month every month, so like the first Monday of the month and last Thursday of the month. Things like that also help with these types of questions.
Great, great. So there are some possible solutions there, and of course maybe there are many more out there. But definitely public interest is a challenge, but we can get creative about how we approach that challenge. Another challenge you may face is actually addressing those questions that you may get related to Internet security and Internet safety, whether it's in a class or in a one-on-one situation. If you don't know the answer to the topic, if it's an off-topic question you're doing a class and people ask something way out of left field, or if it really requires more specialized knowledge. And the solution we suggest for this is to really look to your library skills and look up the answer. It's okay if you don't know the answer to everything that might be asked. And if you don't have time to look up the answer, you could defer that question to a later time and follow up with the person later. Even follow up with an expert in the community to make sure you've got the right answer. But between all the resources we're sharing with you today that you'll get in the follow-up email, and other resources you may have in your library or people that you may know, you can really try to find an answer to that later on and get back to the person. So you don't have to be fearful of that situation. And then this last one, this came up earlier, liability and this question of offering advice. People maybe want a personal recommendation on those devices or on security software. How do they deal with their device? Also, if they're asking you to work on their device, does your library have a policy about how to work with people's devices? Do you have a disclaimer letting people know, well, here's how I can help? Do they sign a waiver saying if you do touch their device? And I'm not necessarily recommending that you do, but I know in some libraries that does happen. So do you have some kind of waiver to protect yourself from repercussions if the person comes back? But I think the first item in the solution is the one we've really been reiterating here, is that we want to give information and not advice. And that really is in line more with library principles and also just good public service. We're not necessarily, unless you happen to be from an organization that is, we're not in the business of giving out that advice as much as connecting people to information. So in the resources you'll receive at the end of this webinar, you'll also see some links to review sites where you can go and look up reviews for specific security softwares. Also, some of the resources really go into detail, and they may recommend, those sites may recommend specific free versions of virus software. But we're not saying that that's something you need to do personally in order to teach Internet safety in your library. And it's also not something that we'll model for you today. We don't want to give you our personal recommendations either, because we think going and seeking out the information really is the best way to go about that. With that, I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm going to move right on, and we're going to take some more questions and answers. And I can see we've had many more questions coming in. Let's just see what maybe a good question to start with is. Now, Austin, there's been several people talking about teaching kids and teaching parents. Do you know of any specific resources for teaching children directly? Did you come across that in any of your sites?
I did, yes. They're in my slides that you'll all get a copy of. There's some links to some resources specifically for kids. One that comes to mind is there was AT&T has a little internet safety game, and it is like it's like a little superhero, so to speak. But in my internet safety program, we had a little extra time, so I actually had the adults play the game, and they thought it was funny, but I think kids would really enjoy it. There was another game in there too. I'm drawing a blank on what that is, but they're those are in my slides, and there are some little fun activities like that. I think if you can turn it into sort of a game or something fun, I think that would appeal more to most children than just going over videos and things like that.
Great. We're also getting a lot of questions that maybe have to do with privacy, so I'm going to kind of lump them together. One of the questions is about, actually let me pull them apart, but we'll ask them one after the other. So one is about Facebook, and I know that Facebook is a topic that comes up a lot when we think of internet safety. And do you recommend covering anything related to kind of what Facebook does to sell information to advertisers, and what happens when the type of information maybe Facebook is aggregating, and how to address that with your privacy or your security settings? Anything on that?
I do, yes. In the GCF Learn Free website, they have a section on social networking and safety in that regard that you could pull content from a little bit. But I do talk a little bit about that, and I talk about some of the internet browsers out there that can keep you from being tracked, like the Epic privacy browser, which is something that is it's built off the same thing as Google Chrome, and it will block those trackers, and it will tell you how many trackers it's been blocked, and it's really eye-opening to see how you're being tracked on those websites. So I always try to show people in my internet safety class just so they can get an idea of not putting too much information out there. I usually will use the example of I've seen on the news people that have had like their houses robbed because they had posted on Facebook that they were going to be out of town, and just being very cautious of things you put on there and identifying information. A lot of things are tied to your location, so you try to remove the location where you're posting from. And there's so many things that you could cover. Knowing when something's legitimate and what's a virus, because you will get a lot of spam on Facebook. It seems like it's getting worse on there, sort of like MySpace got back in the day. I don't know if any of you still use that or not, but yeah, that is another thing, and I'll put a link to that internet browser in the chat.
Great. And then this may also lead into the Google Yourself Challenge, which I think you mentioned in your training. Is that right? Is that something you can just tell people briefly what the Google Yourself Challenge is?
Yes. I have everybody Google themselves just to get an idea of what information they've put out there about themselves online already. Now, if you have a really common name, that is it's not as fun in that case, because you'll see a lot of people with your name in the Google search. But for like me, not a lot of people have my name, so there's not a lot of other Austin Strouds, and I will do a search for myself just so everyone can see what's out there. And I think it's really eye-opening just to be aware of what you've put out there, so you can sort of see the correlation to what you do online can be seen in several places. And the people that have attended my programs really enjoyed doing that. And a lot of them had said they had already done that, which I thought was really cool, because I didn't think people would check things like that. So it was nice to hear that people do.
Great. Great, yeah. And this is so much good information, and unfortunately we're just about at the end of our session, so I'm going to ask one more question as a wrap-up, and then we'll get everybody out in time at the top of the hour. But I guess there's a question that somebody's asked, and I actually want to expand on their question. The original question is, what do you suggest covering at a table at a safety fair? But I think there's also a bigger question here, which is what are the types of things that are maybe the most important or easiest topics to share, whether it's at a safety fair or you're offering a Internet safety class for the first time, or you're just trying to raise awareness with a display in your library. What topics might you suggest covering first?
Well, I think the common thing that comes up the most would be viruses and malware and that type of thing. That's definitely probably the thing that comes up the most, at least for us. We hear that a lot. And the other thing would be phishing and email safety. That GCF Learn Free, they have a great interactive email example, sort of an example of a phishing email and how it looks so real, but they help you point out what is not legitimate about it. And I think you could blow something like that up in a poster format, and you could easily highlight things, helping people like identify what's wrong with the email. And I think it can be really an eye-opening thing for sure to show those things. It's a good visual, I think, the email example.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Those are great ideas, and I think like I said, unfortunately we're out of time. But just a few things before we sign off. And obviously Austin's contact information is up here, and you'll get this in the archive as well. But we will be doing a survey just at the end of this, so if you can hang on until the very end and take just a very brief survey to tell us what you thought of this webinar today, that would be helpful for us. You can contact Austin directly, and thank you, Austin, for sharing your contact information, also your Twitter and your library website, so we can get in touch with you if we have additional questions. There are a few questions that we didn't get to, and we'll be following up with you with those questions. Austin's agreed to answer those after the webinar is over, so we'll follow up with you with any unanswered questions. Also, you'll be receiving an email by the end of this week that will have the archive of this recorded webinar, also the slides for this webinar, and links to Austin's slides that he uses, and many other resources. Like I said, we've been collecting all the resources you've been sharing in the chat as well, so we'll be putting all of that into the archive page for this webinar. A few webinars that are coming up that you may be interested in. If you'd like to learn about getting donations through TechSoup, we have one of those on April 10th. Later on in April, we'll have another public tech instruction webinar on resources for job seekers. We're still working on the date for that, but it will be later on in April. And on May 28th, another TechSoup for Libraries webinar on a new app that's been developed out of part of the TechSoup family to help youth find a meal. And this app is a great new development, and we'll have more on that on May 28th at that webinar. So keep watch on your email to get those notifications, and of course sign up for the TechSoup for Libraries email if you want to learn more, or the TechSoup email. I want to thank ReadyTalk for being our webinar sponsor today. Thank you to all of you for sharing your time with us and sharing your ideas and questions. I hope this was helpful for you and you got a few things to take back to your library or nonprofit. Thank you, Austin, for sharing all of the experience and knowledge that you have about this topic. It sure was great having you here. One more reminder to hang on the line for the survey. But thank you all, and have a wonderful day.